All right, guys, this is part 2 of our Enhanced series. We've got Markus Fit here.
What's up, everybody?
Athlete extraordinaire, NPC Pro. Is it no, it's IFBB Pro. What am I talking about?
NPC Pro.
NPC Pro.
Yeah.
No. But Markus is very knowledgeable in this area, so I figured we could ask him some questions, give you guys some insight into stuff that we don't normally talk about. This is something that the first time I met Markus, when we talked over this stuff, I was just soaking everything in because this guy's been around the block. He's knows everybody, knows everything about this, right? You know everything
I know pretty much everything. I've yet to be wrong, so.
Yeah, exactly. So anything he says, take as gospel and incorporate. No, I'm just kidding. But I wanted to ask him a few questions, and I gave you guys the opportunity to ask a few questions on Instagram. So I'm going to take some of your questions, maybe throw in a few of my own, and we'll all be better for it. So the first question I got, and this is one I wanted to ask you specifically too, because everybody, for some reason, it's the one that's being passed around all the time, is MK677.
Oh.
So I wanted to ask you specifically, what, like, or I shouldn't say I want to, other people did and I did, is what do you consider MK677 good for, and what are the possible downsides to it?
So the main positive of MK677 is the ability to increase your appetite. So you should be utilizing this when you're in a bulk. If you're in a cut, you should not be utilizing this because you'll be extremely hungry and it will be absolutely horrible for you. And so that is really the best benefit of MK677. The amount of GH, the growth hormone that it's going to secrete from your body, the additional, is going to be so minimal that it's not going to be anabolic at all. It's not going to provide any extra muscle gain for you. Like when people are like, oh, I hopped on MK677 and I gained 10, 20 pounds. It's probably from water and it's from the additional food that you're eating. That's pretty much it. And so the biggest side effect of MK677, which I've seen personally, and also what I've seen with other people, is the insulin resistance that it causes. Pretty much your blood glucose levels are gonna spike, you become insulin resistant, and then pretty much you can still be gaining weight, but a lot of the weight that you're gonna gain is just gonna be fat. It's not gonna be like the quality tissue that you want. So if you are taking MK677, you're gonna wanna be utilizing either berberine, which I tried that and it didn't really work too well for me. I had to use metformin, which is going to help keep your body like more insulin sensitive, and you want to be utilizing a blood glucose monitor.
When I first heard about berberine, I tried using that myself for its intended purposes, and I didn't notice a whole lot from it personally.
I got like almost nothing. When I was doing my blood level test like in the morning with my glucose monitor, it dropped like 1 point, and I was like, well, that was pointless. So I had to go to metformin. So. And
how much of a difference did that make for you?
So my blood glucose levels usually sit around like 92-ish when I'm like in a bulk, and they skyrocketed like 110 when I was on MK677. And then with berberine, it dropped down to like 108, 109. And then with metformin, I dropped back down to like 93, 94.
Yeah.
Which is still like on the, I would say like the highest end of the range that you want. Anything under 100 for sure, but like that's still like on the higher end of the range that you want it to be ideally. But if you're in a bulk and you're pushing food, like it's kind of hard to get under 93, 94, like that range with the amount of food that we're eating.
Right. So in your personal opinion, if somebody doesn't, like in my situation, like obviously I'm not enhanced, but if that was something I was considering, I don't struggle to eat.
Yeah.
At all. So you would say MK677 is something that's probably not even useful for somebody like me.
Yeah, I would not. I would, there's no reason for you to take it.
Right. Interesting. So you view it as purely appetite stimulant.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I honestly wouldn't take MK677. So it's banned by WADA. So if you're going by WADA and you decide to take MK677, hypothetically, if you go by that standard, like you will essentially lose your natty status.
Oh yeah.
So if you want to lose your natty status to MK677, if that's something you care about, I would not be taking it. And on the other end, I see majority of the time that people are not actually like maxing out their appetite. They're not eating as much food as they say they are. And they're probably not eating as much food as they probably could be either. Right. And so they're probably eating like 70%, and then they're gonna be like, well, I'm just gonna take MK and like eat more. But it's like, why would you do that? So really, unless you're on gear, or if you have really have a hard time eating as a natural, like some type of issue, like I really wouldn't utilize it.
Yeah, and you're one who struggles a lot when it comes to eating.
Yeah, I'm like the definition of like a hard gainer. Like my picture's in the book, the definition.
Yeah, not me. If I wanted to blow up 250, no problem. Not a good 250.
Yeah, I saw you eating last night. We got all you can eat sushi, and it was just like nonstop. They're bringing this dude bowls, and I'm like eating 3 rolls, and I'm done. And he's just like, oh yeah, that's me. That's me.
We got the Brazilian steakhouse tonight too, so I don't know how I'm gonna survive. All right, next question. Is there any cycle that you regret running, and why?
So I don't regret running any cycle necessarily, because every single cycle I've ran, like I am personally someone who likes to experiment on myself. Like I like to get like firsthand knowledge of how my body reacts. That way I can like tell other people about it or know like what compounds are good and bad for me. So every single cycle I've ever ran is essentially a cycle like I learned something about myself and about different compounds and how I can utilize them or not utilize them in the future. There was one cycle that I ran though, and of course it's the one, I hate talking about this compound because it's become such a meme, but I took a compound one time. It was Test and Trend, and it was I think the second time I ever tried it, but the second time I ever tried it was on a bulk, and that's also when I was younger, years ago, and I was also going out to clubs and like drinking while I was on it as well, and I was partying, and that was during my hoe phase, and I decided to rack up a significant body count during that time because it just, the 2s turn into 10s, your standards go down. At the end of the night, it was either me doing it to myself or someone else doing it to me, and I'd prefer it to be someone else. So that's probably the one I regret because of the bad choices that I made on it.
Just from that perspective, or like was there any areas outside of just the libido side of things?
It damaged my relationships.
Really?
Yeah, it damaged my relationships. It damaged my not family, but also like, yeah, it damaged my relationships. I would say the libido thing honestly was the worst part of it because those choices were the ones that caused me those consequences in other areas of my life as well. But it stemmed from the sexual activity that I was partaking in.
Right.
Also my faith as well. Like I am, this is gonna sound so bad if people play this, I feel like, but like I am a Christian and I grew up a Christian my whole life. And that was the first time I had taken that type of like cycle, not being like in the church and like practicing my faith and everything. I kind of like backslidden, and I made more mistakes in that time in my life than I had probably ever in my entire life leading up to that of the 6 years prior or whatever. So it was something I look back on like not happy about it, not proud about it. Like a lot of people think like having a high body count is a good thing. Like it is not. Like it is very damaging. So I would say I regret that cycle only because of the position I was in, like mentally and with my faith, because I probably wouldn't have the regrets I have today from it. So.
No, that's a very fair assessment. It's like a lot of times I think people don't realize, they think, oh, okay, well, it's just a number, it doesn't matter. And like even calling it like a body count and stuff like that, a lot of times I feel like minimizes the impact that it actually has socially around you. Mm-hmm. But it's like you just don't develop as deep of relationships when you're giving yourself to everybody and everything. Yeah,
another thing with that too is like when me and my girlfriend were out and about, and San Diego's kind of small, like we would see these girls and it obviously would make her feel insecure and uncomfortable, and as a man or as a person, the last thing you want is your partner to feel insecure or like feel some type of way about something or uncomfortable. You want to make sure they're protected and feel great, and so it wasn't ever good to see her like in that spot, and so that was due to the repercussions of my prior actions. So
right. Well, hey, appreciate you being open.
Yeah, there's some vulnerability.
There's a lot to spill there.
Yeah,
but. So apparently, like somebody's told me that you're not enhanced, you're actually just on Ecovision creatine. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I will say the biggest thing I've seen from the enhancements of the creatine is like I took creatine from the jump, and I also started taking gear from the jump too, but I started taking creatine a little bit before I started taking gear. So I've made videos on this in the past too. Like I would say like 90 to 95% of like the gains I've made were probably from the creatine.
I agree.
Because that's what I started taking first, and that's when I saw all my gains, So I would say that's a fair assessment.
Yep, very fair. Moving on. All right. Might be a boring question, somebody says, but do you ever just get sick of pinning?
Dude, all the time. Oh my gosh, this is such a funny question because like it was last night. I had brought my stuff with me because I'm in Houston from San Diego, and I was in bed, and I just finished watching Dune, and it was like I'd never seen him, so I watched Dune.
Wait, part one?
Yeah, part one.
So you haven't seen part two?
I haven't seen part two. That's for the plane ride back.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and I was in bed, and it was like, I don't know, it was like 12:31 in the morning. I was in bed, lights out, and I was like, oh, I got a pin. So I had to get out of bed because I'm taking NPP, and you have to take it every other day, and today was a pin day. So I had to get out of bed, go to the bathroom, warm up my syringes, and stab myself at 1 in the morning because, I needed to get it done. And that's what you have to do when you're taking enhancements, and because timing is pretty sensitive depending on what kind of compounds you're on. But there's been many times I come home, or I'm gonna sleep in bed, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, I got a pin. Or if I'm on a lot of compounds, the amount of oil I have to pin. Like I've come off cycle before just because I got tired of pinning. I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done.
Really?
Yeah, especially when you take in like if you're taking like GH in the morning, that you probably take that 2-3 times throughout the day. There's 3 pins. And if I'm taking glutathione and I'm taking IGF, that might be once to twice a day. And then I'm taking the gear that I'm taking, like that's 7 injections right there in one day. Not all of it's steroids, but you know, it just gets a lot sometimes.
I was gonna say, I have glutathione at home.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you utilize it?
I haven't utilized it yet. Do you find it pretty helpful?
Which one did you get, Revive or Anazao?
I haven't even looked at it yet. I just know that it's at my house right now.
Okay, let me know what you need to get, because if they sent you the Revive one, ask for the Anazao one. That one, you will like cry. Revive hurts so bad.
Really?
Yeah, on a side note. Ask for Anazao. Like it is one of the things where I'm like, gear is not worth this. Being unhealthy, I would rather be unhealthy than take this because it hurts so bad. Yeah. So depending on how they mix it, but I've seen a lot of benefits of glutathione with my 2 things. One, my immune system, and when I was going out drinking a lot, I haven't in a while, and I don't plan to. It would help with my hangovers a lot. I would take it before and after. It's like the #1 antioxidant. It eats up a lot of the toxins in your kidneys and your liver. So
I definitely don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
That's
what you want your fans to see. You should see where we went last night. It was crazy.
We're just slamming stuff behind the scenes. Ooh, here's a good one. If competing wasn't a thing, would you still hop on?
God, that's such a hard question to answer because there's like, it's one coin, 2 sides. For me personally, yes. Because 1, my genetics, and 2, with the life that taking gear has given me, the platforms it has given me, how it relates to finances coming in, the opportunities that I get. You know, I could have built, with not competing, I still could have built all this and been here right now with you talking just about gear and whatever else.
Right.
So for me, I would say it's worth it. But outside of, unless you can make a really healthy income doing that, and you have like elite genetics where you don't have a ton of side effects, it's not affecting other areas of your life, then I would say it's absolutely, per me, it wouldn't be worth it. I just, knowing now, because when I was younger and I was doing it, I was like, oh man, I'm never gonna have health issues, I'm never gonna have this or that, like I'm invincible, you know, I can do whatever else. But now as I'm getting older, I'm not even that old, I'm like starting to think about these things in the back of my mind, like a what if, you know, type deal. So I would say no. If I could go back and do it personally for me, yes, and I probably would have hopped on earlier, only because I know that I have the potential to probably go to Olympia and be an IFBB pro. But if I didn't have that for me personally, then no, I wouldn't say it's worth it for the normal person. But then again, it's their life; they can do whatever they want with it, you know.
Right. And you're 30, so you said you would have hopped on earlier if you could go back and think through things more clearly. How old were you when you hopped on?
I was 25, and so I'm just thinking, like, if I would have tracked macros, counted my calories, trained correctly, and taken gear at like 19, 20 for me, where would I be? An extra 5 years of PEDs and tracking, like, I feel like I would already been at Olympia, you know?
Right.
And so, but I'm trying to play catch up now. I got into the game kind of late. Like, everyone's competing now at 17, 18, 19, 20. I started competing at 25. And so even though it was the earlier stages of competing, I got in late. So I'm trying to play catch up right now, which is why I'm kind of pushing the doses and doing things like that.
Well, I think one of the problems with that mentality of, well, if I had known, I would have started earlier and something like that. I think one of the problems with that mentality is you wouldn't have been the same person starting at that point.
Yeah,
you
probably.
would have been less mature, made a lot dumber decisions going into it. And so it's like, would it have been worth it to take it earlier, knowing that you might have also incurred all of those other negative side effects from being, you know, like a dumb kid who's like, who feels invincible, like they can do anything and have no ramifications.
Yeah, like even when I hopped on at 25, like I didn't know what I was doing. The guy that I bought it from, which was super junk gear at the time, was just like, 500 test, 500 mass, go for it, first cycle. And I was like, okay, like great, like, which I just didn't know what I was doing. Right. I didn't even know how to come off. I didn't know what to PCD. I legitimately thought at that time, like, I thought I was getting small and I'd miss pins like throughout like the weeks, and I'd be like, I'm kind of getting small, I'm just gonna take some right now and like get big. Didn't know it even took 3 weeks to kick in. I didn't even know I was just like, I need to inject it. It's been about a month and just do it. And then obviously that led to a lot of side effects and problems and Accutane and whatever else. But
speaking of timing, you mentioned earlier about having to pin at like 1 or something like that.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that like you always pin at 1 or?
No. I'm taking NPP right now, which is like it's pretty much the short version of DECA, and the frequency of injection should be every day or every other day. Otherwise, it's out of your system. And so it was on the second day. So if I would have it wouldn't be a big deal because I was still running tests as a base since the long ester, but it would have been out of my system. I want to try and keep everything in my system as evenly as possible.
Okay.
So,
dude, you're talking about esters on here.
Sorry.
My audience is not going to know what's
sorry,
going
I'll try.
on.
I'll try and keep it.
You guys can Google definitions as you go along. Oh, this is a good one for you, I feel like, especially because you might be a different case than most. But how much did your facial features change after running a cycle?
So, if you look back at my pictures when I was in high school, like I had a very like predominant like jawline and a very skinny like bone structure. Like I was like very chiseled. Now, my facial features, like I've definitely gained water, and obviously like just as getting older, your face probably rounds out and everything. You're not as lean, but my facial hair, man, like I don't know if you guys can see this. I did not have facial hair, like zero. Like I was like bald like a baby's butt. Like
really?
it was bald until about a year ago. And I started noticing it when I started running cycles, not like PCTing, but I started running testosterone like consistently. And I started noticing like it was starting to come in like down the sides and a little bit on my chin, and then my little Mexi stash started coming in, and then it slowly started filling in. It's not super thick yet, but it will get there. Like it's on its way to being like a full beard eventually, I feel like. And so I feel like, yeah, it's definitely affected which I wish I was bald.
You still look super young.
Yeah, I know. I think I was a late bloomer. I was super late bloomer. Like I didn't even grow to be 6 foot until I was like 2021.
Seriously?
Yeah, I was really short in all of college. My senior year of college, I just finally blew up. And
I was 5'9" by the time I was 14. And so I held on for like those next 4 years, just like, please, like I'm gonna grow. I'm gonna grow. Just I looked at my brother; he's way taller than me. I'm like, that's in my future.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Well, at least it helps with like your strength and everything, you know. Your build.
Exactly. I cope with my strength.
You're pretty strong natural, I will say.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah, this guy's over here repping out with 3 plates.
You
like
hit
crazy.
3 plates too?
Yeah, not for 14 reps.
Well, you still hit it.
Maybe one day. Ooh, good one. What are the biggest challenges that you face while being on gear?
Ooh, the biggest challenges? Just like in general, like anything?
Yeah.
That's a tough one. Do I have it? I don't know if I have like a lot of challenges. I think I don't really have a lot of challenges, to be honest. I think a big reason of that is because my body handles PDs very well.
Okay.
For example, my hair, I have a full head of hair. Had the same hairline, no balding. I don't get acne. I don't get back hair. I don't get chest hair. Like my libido, I've never really had, after I finished my hormones, like I've never had like any issues down, with the Johnson, like after I figured it all out, like on dosing and everything. I'm a very like relaxed, chill person. And so like my mental state is usually pretty clear unless I'm on trend every once in a while. But like I really haven't had a ton of issues. I'd say I know the biggest issue. Hit me like that. My body dysmorphia. I think I look like trash, dude. Like, dude, I look at myself in the mirror, and especially competing, like seeing the how far I can push my body to where it looks like now, and I'm not comparing myself to like the gym bro. If I'm comparing myself to a gym bro, I probably am one of the, not to like suck myself off, but like probably like one of the more aesthetic, bigger gym bros. But in terms of like Olympians and men's physique competitors and everything, like I'm like down the list far.
I mean, but men's physique competitors now compared to like 6 or 7 years ago, the size difference.
Yeah, they're huge.
It's insane.
And I'm not a big dude. Like I am not like a bigger men's physique. Like I'm not bubbly, I don't have those black genetics. I don't fill out like that. Like they eat a carrot and they're like, I'm just over here pounding like 5,000 grams of carbs and whatever else, and I'm like still flat as a pancake. So
I will say this, when we were in the gym yesterday and we were taking a look at things, like I was surprised because your shoulder structure is very wide.
Yeah.
So like when you put on muscle, it looks a lot more impressive, especially from like a competitor standpoint, because if you step on stage with somebody who's bubbly, but they don't necessarily have like as wide of clavicles, you'll still stand out.
Yeah, I would say like I do have like I really like my shape, and I think I'm like a very aesthetic like person, and I like my insertions and everything, and my conditioning, I always like it. It's just like filling out. Like I don't fill out very well. I just never have, and so when I go in the gym, like it's hard for me. Even my pumps, I feel like are like, because of our training style, like I don't get like crazy pumps anymore. Like I have a low volume, low reps. And so when I look at myself, I'm just like, man, you have a long ways to go before you're anything.
But that was one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, because and not to be like pushing in any sense, but I remember you telling me like what you're currently running and stuff. You said it's the most you've ever been on, and here I am thinking, when you told me what you ran, and then you, in the same breath or same couple sentences, you told me like you don't feel like you fill out that much. I was like, well, you're not running that much, like comparatively speaking.
Comparatively in the bodybuilding realm.
Exactly. So is it that you don't necessarily fill out that well, or is it that you're not taking as much substances as some of the people who are a little bit more filled out?
It might be a little bit of both, because I do know there are a lot of people who take a lot more than me. Like most guys I talk to, most of them take more than me. But I will say, like, even on the dosages that I'm on, I still feel like I should fill out more. You know, with how long I've been lifting and how much I eat in my training, I still feel like I should fill out more. And it takes a lot to put muscle on my frame.
I'll say I was surprised to hear that you'd been using PEDs for 5 years and that your highest amount was, what'd you say, 1.6?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was like 1.6 grams total androgens. Is that what we're referring
Anabolics,
to?
yeah.
Anabolics, androgens, like
PEDs,
Yeah.
milligram for milligram.
Yeah, we're talking like 1.6 grams. Like when you hear people talk and they say, and this is me explaining to the audience that knows very little, when you hear people say like, oh, well, they're on like 3 grams, they're usually referring to 3 grams of gear or like, which is obviously a lot.
Like 3,000 milligrams.
Right, 3,000 milligrams. But for you, do you see yourself pushing stuff up further to see like
100%?
And do you? I feel like you have a very impressive physique right now.
Well, thank you.
I don't see why, if you did take it to that next level, why you wouldn't fill out the way that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's kind of like, you know, I was talking with Dawson yesterday, and we were kind of like flip side of the coin. Like I always thought like less is more, but I feel like less is more, but only in the sense of like you want to take the least amount to get the most results kind of deal. But I feel like I could still push that least amount and still get more results, if that makes sense. Like if I'm on 900 tests right now, which I am, and I'm getting these results, which is the highest I've ever taken, I'm getting the best results I've ever gotten. If I did go to 1.2 grams or 1.5 grams a test, and I still get more and more results in the side effect, and I don't get side effects, like why would I not? Right. Because my goal is to get to Olympia, and it's bodybuilding, it's not health.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because the last summer when we met, you were around 230 pounds. And you had a similar body composition to what you have now. And I'm like, holy crap, like that's a lot of growth in 1 year.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm here thinking like you have until you're like 44.
Oh gosh.
Like I know it sounds crazy, but that is the reality of the situation. Like if you take things seriously and you're very methodical about the way you apply things, you could be peaking in your 40s.
I don't want to compete that long, dude. That's
okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
But true. Like like Breon, like there's people like that are like still getting bigger and better year after year. But yeah, I would like to be done competing around like 35-ish. Okay. And so I feel like I have like another year, 2 years, maybe 3 max of like really trying to pack on the muscle and then giving it a good run and seeing how far we can get. But I think just because I want to start a family. Like I just turned 30. In case you guys didn't know, I'm 30. I want to start a family. You know, I want to get married eventually. I want to have kids. Like, I want to focus on other aspects outside of bodybuilding. Fitness will always be my life, but like, as far as throwing all the compounds in my body and the diuretics and everything, like, you know, I just
not exactly conducive to being.
Yeah, unless I somehow get to be like top 10 Olympian. If I'm like in the top 10 and I'm at 35, like, sure, I'll keep going. Because look at Ryan Terry, 36, 37, just became Mr. Olympia. Like, I'll keep pushing if I have an option to do that. But unless I'm up there like that, like 35 is the number for me.
Well, I have a client right now who he's very gifted. He'll be a very solid bodybuilder in the long term, but similar situation. Like his wife wanted to have another kid, so he came off stuff, and like now he's trying to figure out fertility wise and stuff like that. And it's like it is a struggle. Yeah. Like there's definitely like it's not just a simple matter of come off and you're good to go, then go back on. Like he's got to like get a lot of his stuff back that he's lost, that he's missing, and it can be quite an in-depth process.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to see, and that's why like I'm really like kind of fascinated around like gear and everything else, because people have such different reactions to different compounds, and like genetics like play such a like strong part in that, like their reaction to different compounds that are going to bring back their fertility or up their sperm count. Or some people just have crazy strong sperm counts that don't really diminish even when they're on gear. You know, they can get people pregnant while they're on gear, like left and right. And so having like people be the X variable or the X factor has just been like something that's interesting to me. But you're right, it is for a lot of people, or some people, it's not just like a cut and dry situation to bring back your levels and everything else.
I think that right there is one of the most underrated, interesting aspects of gear in general to me, is the variable response, not just from a physical standpoint, like as far as like, so a lot of people talk about like hyper responders versus like non, and like I get it, like there is that difference, but in the end, like it's doing so much internally that there's some people who I've heard of people running like 3 grams plus, and they're like, felt great, felt nothing, didn't like affect me negatively at all. And then other people, they're like, once I got up to 1 gram, like I was completely devastated.
Yeah, like people sometimes be like, oh, I was running like 200 tren and I was like freaking out, like I was like losing my shit. And other people are like, I was like on 1 gram and I was fine. It's like, oh, you question like, were we really taking 1 gram? You know, how much of like that is a personality or hyped up or placebo effect? But the same, or is your stuff real? Which I assume it is. It's tren, it's dirt cheap to make, but you know. At the same time, it's like, how much is that actually genetics and the way it affects your body? So,
and I think in the long run, a lot of times people talk about genetics when it comes to bodybuilding. I think one of the best genetic predeterminants that you can have when it comes to long-term bodybuilding is your ability to handle large amounts of gear.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people take that into account. They're just like, oh, like just give anybody this amount and they'll grow. It's like, well, yeah, like everybody will grow, but there are some people who just won't be able to handle the side effects.
Yeah. I've seen people quit bodybuilding, quit taking gear just because of the side effects. Like they looked amazing, they looked great, but like they just weren't mentally able to handle, or even physically able to handle what they were throwing into their body. And so they're like, I just need to back off. I just can't do it anymore.
And for you, would you say that for you, like obviously you're on the most you've been on before, do you find yourself, because you said you don't experience many side effects, do you find yourself that as that number goes up, like you're starting to notice things more and more?
So the compounds that I run in my bulks are pretty like moderate for my body. Like it's usually just test, mass, primo, and NPP. And it depends like what I'm doing in the cycle, where it's at. Like the primo and the mass are usually just for estrogen control because they help control estrogen, and the NPP and the tests are just for the growth, right? But like when I run things, like when I start popping orals into my body, like, you know, D-ball, Superdrol, I don't usually use D-ball anymore, but like D-ball, Superdrol, Anadrol, anything, Winstrol, or if I start using like Tren or Masteron, or even the shorter esters, so like things that you have to inject daily instead of like once or twice a week, on my preps, like that's when I start getting my side effects. And so it's not so much, I think, the dosage as it is the compound that I'm utilizing.
Interesting. And what's the compound that you would say has been the most negative if you had to rate them? Most negative and most positive. It's kind of like, you know, Sour Patch Kid. It's first it's sour, then it's sweet. Is definitely Tren. Like it's just, I like a love-hate relationship with it because of the potential it has and what it can do and how powerful it actually is. It's like, why would you not love it? But then, you know, flip side of the coin, it's like, with great power comes great responsibility, and there's a lot of issues and problems that compound brings into people's lives. I've seen it ruin marriages, relationships. I've seen people lose their jobs because they have freakouts. Like it really is like one of those things where if you can't handle it, like you shouldn't touch it, which I don't think almost anyone should touch it, to be honest. Like, do what you want, it's your life, you know, more power to you. But in terms of like a logical standpoint, you probably don't need it. That leads me into my next question. And this is one that I think would be super interesting for my audience, because I have a lot of people that watch me who they care about their natural status, but then there's also a lot of other people who they don't really care about their natural status, but they just want to be healthy. But there are a lot of things that you can take as somebody who doesn't want to compete that would not be allowed in natural organizations, but are purely for health benefits. So if I was to ask you what sort of things, like when it comes to peptides, any sort of hormones, pro-hormones, anything like that, what would you say are, if you could list like 5 to 8-ish things that you would recommend people take when it comes to just, if they're looking to optimize their health and they don't care about whether they can compete in natural organizations?
All right, so I'll run off like probably like the top 5, like you said, like top 5 to 10. And number 1 right out the gate, because this is the one that I see a lot. My following is predominantly male. Number 1 I would say is just testosterone, like a TRT therapy. Only because that is the one single one that when there are guys who truly need TRT, and they hop on it and they take it, I'll get messages being like, it was literally like a life changer for me. Like it literally changed my life. Not only like my libido, but also my physique. It helped me at work because I had more energy. I had more energy with my family. My sales went up at work. Like it's literally like changes their life. So HRT or TRT is probably like the number 1 I would say. Like if you do need it, that will completely like turn your life around.
Absolutely.
Number 2, I would say is something like CJC or IGF-1. I guess those are 3 different ones. CJC or testosterone. They both are like growth hormone. They're going to help with like your growth hormone. They help with your skin. They help with your sleep. They help, the way you process food and everything. Those are 2 that I see like with people who are trying to like just be healthier, more physically fit. Those are like the 2 that I see like make the best impact on them. Like I always see really great reviews on those. IGF-1 can help burn fat, gain muscle. It's just like, that's personally my favorite peptide of all time, especially in bodybuilding. Like you can use IGF-1 in terms of like not only like health benefits, but if you want to up it a little farther, then it can go to actually having like bodybuilding benefits as well, which I use it on the higher end for like bodybuilding benefits, but there's a health benefit to it.
Now, just didn't mean to cut you off there, but if you're using it for, say, just a health benefit or something, do you ever find that people are getting negative side effects from the lower dosing more towards the health side of things?
I haven't seen any. The main side effects I've seen from really any peptide that people take is sometimes they get like sometimes like little rashes, like their body isn't used to what they're taking at first. They might get like a little burning sensation when they take it, or might itch a little bit, or things like that. Sometimes people get nauseous a little bit when they take certain different compounds, but as people, what I've heard and what I've seen, and with me as well, is that once you take peptides for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, your body starts to get used to it. So once you're like anything, when you introduce something new to your body might want to like accept it. So it takes a little bit of your body getting used to, but once then, it does. I haven't really seen like significant side effects. I would say the biggest one is like the nausea. I've seen people get nausea from multiple different compounds sometimes, but
and does that last as long as they take it, or is
it usually goes away once your body starts getting used to it. Unless you up the dose, then sometimes it comes back. And then I would say the last like 2 or 3, glutathione. It's the number 1 antioxidant. Helps a lot, not only for immune system, but also if you're like going out and drinking. It helps a ton. That's what I honestly was using it for. Or if you're on orals, if you're taking gear and you're taking like orals, it helps a ton as well. And I would say dihexa. I love dihexa. Have you ever tried that?
I have not.
You should look into dihexa. I take it in like first thing in the morning with your like my coffee, and it kind of just like jump starts you.
It's a cognitive one,
right?
It's
cognitive, yeah. And it actually has been studies on like it helps with like forming new brain connections, which for like dementia and stuff like that as well. And so it really helps. Like whenever I want to be in like, some people smoke like weed when they want to be in their creative mindset. Like I'll take dihexa and sit there and like game plan my content and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So people who are like groggy or work office jobs or like need creative needs, I would say like it's definitely a unique like cognitive compound to take. But those are probably my ones out the gate. There's other ones like AOD and stuff like that, but they're very unique, specific, Ozempic, but those are very niche kind of compounds.
Now, I think I heard, I can't remember how long ago it was, but I think you said that it was your dad or somebody was dealing with some chronic pain.
Oh yeah, didn't even think about that. See, there's so many.
Yeah, and that was BPC that you got him on, right?
Yeah, so my dad had been dealing with like tennis elbow, like inflammation in his tendons, and he was just doing, he was just curling, but using a flat bar curl, and he just hurt both his elbows, like legitimately at the same time. He's doing too heavy. He's like 57, and his elbows, like I would constantly notice when I was ever seeing him, like he was just rubbing him. He was just talking to me, like rubbing him. And I was like, what is up with your elbows? He's like, it's curling. It's been like this for like months. And so I got him some BPC, and he started taking it. And around like 10 to 14 days after, he said it had been like 80% like gone away. And so he started taking it, and he was able to start working out again and everything else. And as soon as he stopped taking it, it came back for him. And so the thing I told him is, usually with BPC or compounds like that, like it doesn't completely fix like problems, especially if they're either chronic or if it's something that you're doing to constantly irritate that injury. And so BPC though, for him, like it helped him a lot. So I got him back on it, and since he's been on it, he's been completely fine pretty much for the most part, and able to work out and get back into his daily routine.
Okay. And the one question I did want to ask you about, because when I was talking about BPC with my audience, talking about some of the positives about it, I had some people, they said that they would stack it with TB500. Is that something that you would recommend personally, or is that, are they separate? How do you do that?
So they're separate, but they definitely call it, like, there's that thing that everyone's probably seen, like the Wolverine stack. Like everyone calls it that because like the amount of healing that it can provide for you or help you with. I would definitely say BPC 157 is like the better compound for sure. But stacking with TB500, especially if you have like muscular issues, is definitely like a smart play. If you have something like an actual tear or something like that that's like serious, I would definitely stack it, because why would you not if you're trying to get the most healing out of whatever compounds you're taking? BPC is really good for like tendons, ligaments, soft tissue. It can help with like arthritis, things like that, or any type of inflammation in your body. TB500, from everything I've read about it and heard, I actually personally haven't taken TB500, I've only taken BPC, but everything I've heard about it is that it helps a lot more with like muscles. And so if you have like a muscular injury, then I would recommend stacking with TB500.
Well, guys, I tell you what, like, I hear a lot of times people say that you shouldn't talk about this stuff, that you shouldn't go over this stuff. I heavily disagree, simply for the fact that there are going to be, everybody knows kind of in the background that bodybuilding, that the fitness world, that there's a lot of performance enhancement that goes involved with it, but there's also a lot of stuff that can be mitigated if people are doing things appropriately. And I feel like the more we keep things in the dark, the more people will do things that they shouldn't do. Some people are going to make the decisions to hop on, other people not. Some people are going to make the decision to take peptides just for their overall health, some people not. And I feel like this is something that we do need to bring into the light more, that we do need to talk about more. That way people can get a better general understanding as to what their body is actually capable of and what it's not capable of. Now, I understand that there will probably be a few people upset that we're talking about this, but I would say to those people, let's ask yourself why, because in the end, it's like, we know that people take enhancements, we know that people are going to be dumb about it, that some people are going to be smart about it, and that some people are just never going to want to touch it. So rather than making this something where we assign morality to it, let's come at it with a level head, talk it through more clearly, and find people that are actually going to be honest with you guys about what's going on. Because I do find that there are a lot of people who take enhancements and then lie about it.
Yeah.
Either lying about having taken it at all, or lying about what they're doing, how much of it they're doing, because it is a very taboo area for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
I appreciate Markus being able to come on here and be open and honest with you guys, Dawson as well, and hopefully we get to do this again.
Yeah, this is fun. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I
Cool.
appreciate it. TNF out.
Echo to the moon.